All right, I'm Mac Watley again, and we're standing here in Franklinville at what's called the Upper Mill area. The way rivers run from uphill to downhill, people in a community refer to things up the river as upper and lower as lower. In Franklinville we had two mills, the upper mill, cotton mill, and the lower cotton mill. The upper cotton mill was the Franklinville Manufacturing Company, named after Jesse Franklin, the governor of North Carolina, who was an anti-slavery activist. The lower mill was the Island Ford Manufacturing Company, started 9 years later in 1846. So when you hear people talk about the upper mill, the upper dam, that's what they're talking about. The upper mill, though, was first, so it was the only mill for a long time. It was a mill made to grind corn and wheat. It was built in the early 1770s. We don't know exactly what time, but the man who built it, Jacob Skeen, came to North Carolina from Virginia about 1769. He bought this land, lived on it, built the mill, and that was across the street from where we are now. To build a mill, though, first you have to build a dam, then you have to build a canal from the dam to the water wheel at the mill. So that dam and that canal served not just the grist mill, but a sawmill, a cotton gin, a wool carding machine, and finally the cotton mill. The dam is still in existence and still today generates electricity. So you also hear people in Franklinville talk about the roller mill. The roller mill was a modification of the grist mill that was built in 1912. Grist mills grind corn and wheat with rocks, two rocks that grind on each other, and the grain goes in the middle and is torn apart and comes out a hopper on the backside, and that's what makes cornmeal or makes flour to bake with. So stones grind rough, as you can imagine. It's like using sandpaper to grind wheat. For 1,000 years or more, that was perfectly good, and it made what we call today whole wheat flour, flour that was all natural and nothing was added or taken out of it. In the 1880s, a process was created called roller milling, and that was a process that used steel rollers that rolled against each other with little burrs on them, sort of like sandpaper, but sharper. Right here we have two roller mills. These two were built in Salem, Virginia. They're not original to Franklinville. The original ones here were destroyed in a fire in 1987. But these are early. These are 1890s roller mills, and can't see very much in there. But the rollers are right there, turned by these wheels, and the grain is fed down through the top, goes in here, and is ground up in the moving rollers. So that made a kind of flour that we today call white flour or cake flour. It was refined and processed because the wheat germ and the bran was taken out of it. The bran is a little husk around the wheat seed. So the wheat was not, the byproducts were not wasted. They were turned into animal feed. So Franklinville not only had a reputation for having high quality roller flour, we had a reputation for high quality animal feed. We made feed for chickens, we made feed for pigs, horses, cows, rabbits, goats. There are dozens of different kinds of packaging you could find at antique stores for Randolph Mills animal feed products. As I said, that the roller mill and the feed mill burned in a major fire in the late 1980s, and the site grew up. Part of the roller mill site was storage for corn and wheat. Originally they were just stored in the top of the building, and it fell down by gravity into the roller mill. But the mill became big and successful, and they gradually built additional storage facilities. And the first silos they built were made out of terracotta, a kind of brick. And there were 4 of them, and then they added another 6. And then later in the 1950s, they added another 6 made out of concrete blocks instead of terracotta. The concrete block silos were the last because they were built with money from the Federal Civil Defense Administration, because Randolph Mills made so much flour. People in the federal government thought that it was a good place to add even more storage in case of nuclear attack. Then Randolph Mills would still be able to grind flour because it had water power and it had electricity generated on the river. So the concrete silos were built in 1957. They're 20 feet in diameter and 65 feet tall. They could hold at least 16,000 bushels of wheat in each one. So that adds up to about 100,000 bushels of wheat in those 6 concrete silos. So all 16 silos, that meant they could store around 250,000 bushels of corn and wheat to have available to grind products in the roller mill and the feed mill. After the mill burned, the site grew up and the silos became covered with poison ivy and bushes and things like that. And all of the gantries and the tubes and pipes that fed the grain into them fell down or were hauled away. And so they were an eyesore. So we got an idea to do an art project with them. And the North Carolina Arts Council, through the Randolph County Arts Guild, gave us $3,000 to hire an artist to design an art project using those silos. Silo art is a common thing in the Midwestern United States and in Australia, where there are many, many silos. So this is the first project like this in North Carolina that we know of, and it is an interesting project. You let us know what you think about it in the comments.